left-hand grip, but look at how much.
So we got Daniel Berger here. He won the tournament last week and played really good. He almost won this week too. And Peter's about to ready just to give some analysis of his swing. He starts with, he's got a real turned left-hand grip and a real turned right-hand grip to the left. And here's the top of his swing. And as usual in these sorts of analysis, you've got a big shoulder turn as the main component.
Shoulder turn he has. That is phenomenal. Now he starts to rotate his body coming forward, and he has to make sure that the hands lead the club head coming forward in order to make sure that he gets the club face squared up by impact. So now as he continues on through the impact, look at the left-hand grip again. It's right back where it was at address.
A lot to be learned from that one. You can see how far his left knee is relative to his ankle, how much more toward the target it is. Ton of hip sway, shaft leaning forward, face is open to the target. He's ready to smash this thing. I wish all of those words were said in here, but now this is where it gets real juicy.
A great pair of hands, great pair of eyes. When all is said and done, this is a game of hand-eye coordination.
At the end of the day, don't worry about anything. It's all just whether or not you're good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hands and eyes is all you need.
I think I'd rather talk about
that's what I tell people to do.
ways that we can actually help people play better golf. So we've got our friend Dave on here. Let's talk to him.
Yeah, we got Dave Saunders, our regional manager of Northern Virginia. Dave, welcome.
Thank you.
Real quick, give us the 15-second version of your GOLFTEC background.
Oh, boy. Been a GOLFTEC coach, center manager and regional manager. Started about 10 years ago. I've taught a little bit over 20,000 lessons in my career. I've been teaching since about 2002. So.
Yeah, great. And Dave and I met probably about 6 years ago when I started working with the Northern Virginia, DC, Baltimore area. His center's been one of the fastest growing centers over the last bunch of years, won some awards. So Dave, great to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Dave,
Nick, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, well, Dave's obviously helped a few people in the past. Let's take a look at one of them that he's spent the most time with here. This is your student, Greg. So before I play Greg's swing, and we're going to look at where he started and where he ended, tell me about Greg's game and how typical his problems really are.
Yeah, I would say typical is a great word. Greg came in and he was struggling with contact issues. He was kind of pulling the ball and he was hitting really short shots in terms of distance, and he would miss right if he didn't hit a pull. And man, he was in a bad way. He was shooting, upper 90s, creep into the hundreds regularly. Yeah. He was around a 22 to a 23 handicap at the time.
And I saw this swing. For him to break 100 is pretty impressive, because I can only imagine what his driver looked like. But to put that into perspective of everyone who does watch this, you can see this chart that I've got hanging up here. This is a pretty easy one to understand. It's a little raw on how quickly I made it, but it's your handicap. So the better players are over here on the left side, and the worst players are over here on the right. So this would be your 100+ shooters all the way down to your single-digit guys, and percent of shots that are either on the target, but if you miss the target, which way do you miss? And 39% of the misses for better players are to the left, and then you slowly see this trend continue all the way down to far more rightward the worse you are at golf. So that's pretty normal. I think what you're seeing there is very typical, which is why I think this is an awesome example. So let's see what you did, or let's take a look at Greg's first swing here anyway.
Yep.
So anything that you recall from this very first lesson that struck you as either odd or you'd seen 1,000 times, one or the other?
Well, I had seen this a lot of times, but it was the extent that I was looking at it. It was how much the path shifted left. I kind of took a moment and said, wow, that's a wow. And he and I talk about it now. We joke about it now. He's like, I have no idea how it got here, and I don't ever want to go back.
Right.
But
there's a point to be made in there, though. So you've seen people who slice balls and swing to the left quite a bit. Yep. This one is no different. It's just more extreme. So I always try to tell people, don't feel embarrassed or shy or that you have some extreme problem no one's ever seen before. I feel like you've probably seen everything.
Potentially.
Pretty close. Now, some problems are just more severe than others, but they're
Yeah, absolutely.
golfers are not as unique as you think. So what do you think about the shaft parallel to the ground and the backswing right here, Dave Balzer?
Well, I mean, the student appears to have two hands and two eyes. I assumed it would have been better based on that, although that was a downswing comment. So, that's my quick take on it, but definitely doesn't look quite right.
He's nailing it, right? So this is the start of, if I were going to design a swing where I swung the most to the left, this is how I would start it. From the front view, I wouldn't turn at all. Keep my hips and shoulders basically facing the golf ball, as you can notice over here. The average tour player right here, this is a tidbit for anyone who's struggling with golf to understand. The average tour player has their shoulders turned about 53 degrees at this point in time. He has probably turned his about 20, maybe 20. So long way to go, and then this is the beginning of people telling themselves they're not flexible enough, so if they don't start turning early enough. Meanwhile, he's got his left arm has actually pushed away from him as he started his swing. It hasn't begun going around him at all. And you're ready to slice right here. Did you start with something like this, Dave, talking about this part of the swing?
Yeah, so this would have been his evaluation, and one of the first things we do in the evaluation, obviously, is discuss the differences and what he should be doing and what he is doing. So yeah, this was covered. Ultimately, we worked immediately on moving his hand path more inward because obviously, like you said, don't really want to swing out to in, and we're all ready to do that. So made that adjustment very quickly.
Yeah, and let's even look at that from his after swing here. Or this is just one you've done recently.
Yep. So this is probably one over the winter, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is January.
Yeah.
So if I can go back even a little bit, there's the shaft parallel to the ground, and now you can see how his little distance his left hand is from him is much closer. The foot faces more in, and this is the start of making a nice swing. From the front, he's turned more. You can see a difference between where his knees are at here versus where he started. Nice job. Let's keep going to maybe where this starts to get really problematic for Dave, which is on the way down.
Yeah.
Talk a ton about this. Anyone who's watched Dave and I talk about this before has seen this picture. First, that front picture is disturbing. That is the angle of attack so downward. His hips are, I believe, tilted to the left here still. His shoulders are almost level, if not trending towards the right. But the shaft passing through the base of his neck here, that is a big no-no if you want to try to hit any sort of straight shot. Pretty tough to do that. So what did you talk to Dave about here, or Greg about here, Dave?
At this point, we just basically, I would pull up a player on this other side and just show him, hey, this is what it should look like. Your lead arm should not be moving out and away from you as much. It should be more like the guy on the right side of the screen as I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
The path should not be shifting. And, I don't have a way to measure this one on the left, but it's probably shifting greater than 10, maybe even 15 degrees left as he's hitting the ball. Very down, very left. So just explained to him, I said, the shoulders are going to need to be less open. The club and the lead arm would need to be less away from you as you're swinging and hitting. And then so we would ultimately later on have discussions about tilting more to the right, which you see a little bit.
And this is a really good comparison. You were talking about keeping your shoulders closed. You can see how much more of his chest is visible than here, even without the motion measurement that we get to use. And now the shaft is below his shoulder, if not close to about where the middle of his right arm would be. It's kind of cutting through that section. So at this point in time, his swing direction, you can take these pictures, and every time you see a picture, it gives you an opportunity to determine where the ball is going to go. At this point in time, the picture on the left over here is ready to slice, and he has almost no time for the amount of adjustment he needs to make to not do that. Meanwhile, on the right, having the shaft go through about the middle of your right bicep, at this point in time, his swing direction is very straight. So there isn't a lot of adjustment that needs to be made to hit the ball straight. But this is where most people go wrong. They have the shaft too high when their left humerus is parallel to the ground like this. And then the difference between trying to hit a shot straight and not slicing into the trees is really insurmountable. So nice job on this one. Let's go down to where this makes a little bigger difference too. I don't quite have this when the shaft's parallel to the ground, but let me see how close we can get as a comparison here. So check out those two. I'll see if I can lower this one down one more. Maybe it'll just be another frame on both. So in both of these pictures, now if you start looking at the sweet spot of the club, here's the swing where he's hitting the shots very straight or drawing maybe too much, versus the sweet spot of the club over here, which brings in a whole nother possibility of the hosel of the club hitting the ball. So many people come in and hit shanks from that.
Yeah,
so we did a really nice job
on a recent episode. So.
Yeah, exactly. So you did a really nice job on this, Dave. Is this pretty normal operating procedure for you to be able to adjust a swing like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is essentially what I do all day with students.
And
then the interesting thing was one of the things we noticed was his path was actually more in to out. If you went back, say, 6 or 8 months ago, one of the things we did when we looked at goals and, remembering that he was a 22 and then ultimately he's down into that 10 range now, he actually started to overdraw the ball. So he was hitting almost too much of a leftward curve. And while he was still playing better golf, 10 or 11 strokes better, one of the things we kind of reorganized was, how to curve it, how to curve it less, which was the interesting thing. But yeah.
Super valuable point to learn. You've got to.
Goes right along with Nick's chart.
Yeah. All right. Now his misses are trending towards the lowest handicaps. But that is the skill as a coach. Every coach should have this. This is what you practice all day long, and you're obviously good at it. It's taking someone who swings too many degrees to the left, making him swing too many degrees to the right, then understanding how to straighten that out and reduce the amount of draw, and do that not like it's a race, but do it quickly enough where it's a ton of fun for somebody to get better. I bet he's hitting this ball farther. Can you explain differences in distance now?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that he's a pretty strong guy, and he was hitting his 7-iron around 140 yards, and that was a really good one.
Yeah,
like smoked it. So if he would slice the ball, it would go less. It would go maybe 120 or 130. So the interesting thing is we did a club fitting. We got him into some new Callaway irons. We got his swing direction moving into out. We're now controlling curvature. And when he hits the ball very, very flush, and we just say apples to apples, we'll say a good strike in either scenario, he's picked up around 50 yards with a 7-iron.
Yeah. How about that?
140, he can actually hit the ball about 190 just because he's using good quality equipment and swinging more efficiently. And that combination equals 50. And we go back to this swing here and laugh about it and go, Dave, don't ever let me do that again.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've got a student for life here, but I don't think that's uncommon. He did swing fast, but the amount of spin loft or the amount of dynamic loft that he tried to use on these was too high. So he hit a lot of the high spinners. And when you look at this picture on the right, I've got his before swing here. This was his first one with you. Now bent forward his neck is, how bent forward his pelvis is, how bent forward his shoulders are. How flexed his right knee is. He's got a little bit of that like pointer dog look when the dogs go hunting and they stick their face out like this and aim at the bird. He's got that view. And then you see on the right how much more he's starting to, instead of be bent forward like this in the chair, he's stretched out backwards. And that's such an element to help you swing faster. And I can tell you've done some quality work with him on that one too. So this is a really good example of how to play golf. You mentioned his clubs though. I did think I have that on here someplace. Let me see if I can get you guys out of my way and take a look at his clubhouse here. So all I did really for anyone who's interested in what's going on here, I'm just pulling up some swings that I was able to find in his previous appointments with you, and we're just reviewing those. But I did see his club fitting that he did with you in 2019. Did he get these Apex irons and the hybrid?
Yeah, we've actually done 2 fittings over the years. He's been a student of mine for, I think, around 3 years. And initially, within the first year, he had some very old Payne golf clubs. And then we actually fit him for the 16s, which he had initially.
Mm-hmm. I see that here. They look like they perform pretty well, judging by the backspin, the launch angle, and then the descent angle.
Yeah, the initial set of clubs were a good fit for him. Primarily, the thing he liked about the newer stuff was just that he wanted something to be a little bit more current. He also he just wanted to tune them up and make sure that they were just right. And then I think he also wanted a separate set. So
Yeah, and then he did a nice job. He gained a couple miles an hour of ball speed on these. Distance went up 8 yards, and then his angle of descent, or the landing angle on the ground, got more obtuse. So the ball's actually just coming in at a higher angle, stopping quicker too. Maybe even like a touch too high, quite honestly, but that's still a really nice way to hit it. So that looks like what you did with him was move from his 16 Callaways, try the 19, and see if there's anything different. I'm guessing you didn't go into that thinking you were going to sell him anything.
yeah, we just said, hey, let's do it. It's part of your plan, and let's make it happen. And we did went through the process and liked the distance. He liked the newer, more current stuff, and just happened to be his decision to make the decision to go with it.
Yeah. So every golfer who's watching this, what we do with our students is really lay out a game plan of whatever it is you want to do the first day you walk in and how we can help you get there. But included in that is a view of your golf clubs, doing a club fitting, and not to see not for us to try to sell you clubs. It's to see if what you have right now is holding you back, so that's keeping you from not improving enough. So like you hear Dave's tone in this, he's just suggesting, let's try these, see if they're any better. If they are, you can decide what to do from there, but there's no pressure in this whatsoever. But all of these are really just all these tactics are really aimed at just making you better, teaching you how to swing straighter into the ball, have the club face more close. You hit these tiny little draws that go too far at first until you learn how that works. And then we investigate your equipment, make sure that you can't, that a club in your bag or a set of irons, there isn't a little bit of ground to be made on the equipment side. What else have you done with Greg? Have you been outside with him at all?
Yes, actually. So when we look at his game every year, we sort of say, how we've been doing, and where do we want to go next? And he's hitting the ball very well, and he's striking it much better. He's not moving around as much. His path is far more consistent. He's really good at doing the things we've worked on, and so now it's been something from to some degree we discussed it in 19, and then 2020, the discussion that we had over the winter was, when it warms up, we're heading outside. So been doing some playing lessons, short game lessons. We've worked on some different variations of wedge shots, being able to not spin the ball more, just control spin around the greens when he's hitting these shots. So various different things, and really that's where his lesson plan has taken us is, let's get the swing better. And then we've also been working more on the outdoor components.
Yeah, that's a huge part of getting better. It's easy to hit a ball 4 feet into a net. That's simple. It doesn't have to go very far. But it's a whole nother story to be out there with your friends or your coach, or the dogs are barking, the grass is growing, there's dirt on your ball. You got to learn how to play in all those different variables as well.
Dave, what's his next goal? I think you said you got him down to a 10.
So yeah, he's just a touch over a 10 right now, and he actually in the last year has had a newborn. So one of the other things that was interesting is that he's actually had less time to devote to golf, but he's actually a better player, primarily because he's more efficient. So our goal for 2020 is to get outdoors, start to really polish up the variations in the wedge shots around the green, and then talking some course management. And then, ultimately from a handicap perspective, he doesn't really have any stopping point. I think he's got the physical ability to shoot, low single digits. The strokes are coming off a little slower because it's what happens when you're not coming from 22 to the 10. But I mean, I would say right now, 6, 7 is probably the goal for the end of the year, and then see where 2021 takes us.
That's come a long way from shooting 100 once in a while to
long way. And I'll put my money on him hitting it with you guiding him, getting down to that 6 or a 7.
Oh, he can totally do it. He's shot a couple of 9-holers for 1 over, even par even. And some of our playing lessons, he's actually been under par for a certain number of holes. So the potential's there. It's just when we look at the weaker spots in the game, it always tends to be his putting gets a little bit squirrely. He'll struggle with speed control and some green reading. And I think those two are intermingled. And then, just not having all of the different shots around the greens, as I've alluded to, just not having all the tools in the bag. When those things come together, he could very easily surpass the goals we've set.
What's the putting lesson looking like with you for the, you mentioned speed control and green reading weren't very good. How are you going to help him get better at those skills?
Yeah, we did a putting assessment for him over the winter, and then we did some subsequent lessons, primarily working on getting the stroke itself to just be more structured. So one of the things we worked on was just trying to add a specific amount back and through that he was working the putter face. He tended to just kind of move up there and just smack it. He didn't have a lot of structure in his pre-shot routine or way he was setting up. We had made an adjustment to a putter along the way, so we knew the equipment was in a good spot. Where we needed to go was really adding the structure. So we spent a good amount of the winter time working on some drills to add some structure to the putting stroke. And that helped a lot with the speed. And then we started to transition outside. We started just taking that stuff outside and saying, hey, now it's warm out. We can be on a putting green. Let's go do it on the grass. Don't change a thing. Yep. And that's been the way we've been doing it from a springtime, summertime perspective. Is we've already done the groundwork. We've laid that portion of it. Now we're just trying to say, can we hold ourselves accountable to doing the same things on the golf course and the practice green as we were doing in, December and January.
I can understand how you got him from a 22 to a 10 and eventually to a 6. What I've heard through this whole thing is it's remarkable how completely you've worked on his game. Like I think I don't know, we've been on camera here for 20, 30 minutes or something like that. And I think in that time, we've literally mentioned just about everything that happens on the golf course is something that we've worked on and dialed in with him. And so that's why he's going to get to a 6 or a 7. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's what we do is this total coaching. To be a coach, you can't just look at one component. You have to look at everything.
Right.
And you're trying to eke a stroke out of every single facet of the game, and it adds up.
I think that's a great way to segue into the end of this one, Dave. This is a repeatable, reliable story, though, that happens thousands of times every day. So I think I mention almost all the time, I don't care if you take GOLFTEC lessons, but if you really do want to get better, know that we've got a program that's very individualized with guys who care about you like Dave does, and it'll be able to help anyone reach whatever goals they have. What do you think, Balzer?
It's that simple. That and you need hand-eye coordination.
That's all you need, because that's all it comes down to. And it's tough. I hope your people at home aren't trying to learn the game of golf by listening to the TV commentators. It's just a bad way to go. So I do want to chew that a bunch of apart here soon. I've got some greatest hits from Brandel Chambly, Nick Faldo, Peter Costas. They're all super good guys, but I'm trying to also show the detriment and the scary things you might hear on TV because of the challenges that they face and their lack of understanding about some basic things about golf. So, but today was awesome to hear another success story, Dave Saunders. I know you have, we were talking about this before we went on, how many lessons and club fittings you have today. So knock them dead.
Yep.
Do what you normally do, man.
Will do.
Okay. Well, thanks again, as always, guys. And then we'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, Dave. See you, Nick.
Thanks, guys.